My name's Connor. I'm 27 years old, and if you asked anyone in my family, they'd probably peg me as the odd one out, not because I've ever rebelled or gone off the rails, but because I don't cave to emotional pressure, especially the kind laced with guilt trips and disguised as concern. I've always been more of a listener than a talker, which people often misinterpret as weakness or assume means I'm easy to sway. Funny how silence tends to make folks underestimate you. Maybe that's exactly why they thought they could get away with what they did a few weeks back. It all began with Grandpa's house. He passed away last year. We'd known it was coming. He'd been sick for quite a while, but knowing doesn't always soften the impact. His absence hit harder than I expected. Grandpa was the kind of guy who could light up a room just by being in it. He had this way of telling stories that made you forget to check your phone, knew how to fix anything with duct tape and determination, and always made you feel like you were the only person that mattered when he was talking to you. To me, he wasn't just Grandpa, he was my confidant, my role model, the one person in the family who never looked down on me for being quiet or for not fitting the mold of success my siblings wore like badges. So when he died, it left this gap in my life I didn't really know how to patch. A few months after the funeral, I got a call from his lawyer, and let me tell you, I was not ready for what he said. Apparently, Grandpa had left me the house, all of it, the entire property, the land, everything inside, just me. Not my parents, not my sister Lila, who's 32, runs a decluttering business, and talks about Marie Kondo like she's her spiritual twin. Not my brother Brent, 30 years old, still banking on crypto miracles and the occasional handout from Dad's pension. Just me. Now, this wasn't just some sentimental shack. This house sat on land that had been gaining value for years, prime real estate in a part of town that developers had been circling like vultures. It was worth serious money, close to $1 million. I was stunned. Grandpa had mentioned before that he wanted the house to stay in the family, said he didn't trust anyone else to take care of it, but I never thought he'd write that into a legal document. Still, I didn't tell anyone right away. Something told me to keep it close, like carrying a candle through a windstorm, my family and surprises. Not a good mix, especially when money's involved. So I waited. I read the will cover to cover, underlined things, reread them a dozen times. Grandpa hadn't left room for interpretation. In his handwriting, plain as day, I leave my home, the entirety of the estate, and all that resides within it to my grandson Connor. It is my wish that he maintain its integrity and ensure it is not sold or divided for personal gain. No vagueness, no wiggle room. A week after I'd started moving my stuff into the house quietly, just a few things here and there, I got the call. It was Lila. "Hey, Jace," she said, voice syrupy sweet, the tone she reserves for manipulation masked as friendliness. "Mom said you've been staying at Grandpa's house? Is that, like, a thing now?" I told her. "Yeah, it is. Grandpa left it to me." Dead silence, then this weird little laugh. "Wait, seriously? I thought Mom and Dad were handling that, deciding what to do with it." "Nope," I said. "It's mine. It's in the will." Another pause, then just, click. She hung up. The next day, I got a text from my mom. "Can we have a family talk?" That phrase, it unlocked something in my memory. She used to say that when we were kids and someone screwed up, a family talk was never an actual discussion. It was a monologue with chairs. Still, I said I'd come. Better to face the storm than let it sneak up behind me. What I didn't expect was the full-blown ambush. They were all there. Mom, Dad, Lila, Brent, lined up in the living room like they were about to stage an intervention. Lila stood as soon as I walked in, wearing her client pitch smile. "Hey, Jace, thanks for coming. We've been talking, and we just wanted to clear the air." I sat down, feeling my chest start to tighten. "Clear the air about what?" Brent jumped in. "The house, it's a big asset. Man, we were thinking maybe it's only fair if we all benefit." "Benefit?" I asked, even though I already had a sinking feeling where this was going. Mom chimed in. "Your grandfather always wanted to take care of the family. Connor, you know how giving he was. He wouldn't have wanted the house to just sit there while the rest of us are struggling." I shook my head slowly. "It's not just sitting there. I'm living in it. I'm taking care of it." Lila crossed her arms. "Yeah, but we were thinking maybe you could sell it? Split the money. It could help Brent clear his debts, help me expand my business, give Mom and Dad that trip they've always wanted. Everyone wins." Brent nodded, all eager agreement. "It's not like you're using the whole house. Bro, half the rooms are probably empty." I looked at them, trying to make sense of it all. "You guys know what the will says." Dad let out a sigh. "We just think you're being a little selfish here, son." That's when I reached into my bag. I'd brought a copy of the will, just in case, and thank God I did. I unfolded it carefully, and placed it on the coffee table. "Then I guess you haven't read this part," I said, pointing to the section titled Grandpa's Wishes. It didn't just confirm the house was mine. It made it crystal clear that Grandpa didn't want it sold or divided, that he trusted me to protect what he'd built. For a second, nobody said a word. Then the chaos began. Lila grabbed the paper and started scanning it like she was hunting for a loophole. Brent muttered something about me manipulating Grandpa at the end. Mom burst into tears, and Dad just shook his head and said something about the family falling apart. It felt like the living room had transformed into a courtroom, with everyone talking over each other and nobody actually listening. And there I was, right in the middle of it, holding onto a piece of paper and wondering how a gift from the person who understood me most had somehow turned me into the villain. Accusations flew, guilt tripping, shouting. Every emotional weapon in the arsenal came out, and I just sat there. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I wanted them to go first, let them pour it all out. The anger, the wounded pride, the complete disbelief that Grandpa would leave something so meaningful to me. Me, the quiet one, the one they never took seriously. That's when things began to shift. That night wasn't just another heated family spat. It was the starting point of something way messier, way darker than I could have imagined. Suddenly, little things started to feel off. I noticed unfamiliar cars idling near the house. A few pieces of mail never showed up, and I started hearing whispers, innocent-sounding questions from family friends that felt too conveniently timed. Then came the incident that made it all crystal clear. They weren't going to stop at passive-aggressive comments and emotional manipulation. That line had already been crossed. After that night, I stopped visiting my parents' place. I needed space. Physical, mental, all of it. I left the copy of the will on their coffee table on purpose. Let them stare at it, obsess over it, twist themselves into knots trying to find a loophole that didn't exist. Maybe they'd come to terms with it, or maybe they'd escalate. Spoiler alert, they escalated. At first, there was a weird kind of silence. Nothing from anyone. Not a call, not a text, not even one of Lila's classic veiled posts online about certain people forgetting where they came from. Total radio silence for 2 weeks, and honestly, that was more unnerving than the yelling. Because when it's quiet like that, it doesn't mean the storm's past, it means it's gathering strength. Then the subtle stuff began. I started noticing my mail was being tampered with. Not everything. Just the critical items, a missing bank statement, a package that never arrived from a friend in Oregon, a utility bill that was suddenly overdue. At first, I chalked it up to some clerical error. I checked with the post office. No holds, no misrouted mail, my address was correct. Everything should have been running smoothly. That's when I got a visitor. It was a random Tuesday afternoon. I was working from home, juggling freelance graphic design gigs. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills. There was a knock at the door, sharp and insistent, the kind that says I know you're in there, and I'm not going away. I opened it to find Mr. Donnelly, one of Grandpa's longtime neighbors from a few houses down. He looked uneasy, shifting from foot to foot. "Hey, Connor," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I probably shouldn't get involved, but your mom stopped by last night." I blinked. "She did?" "Yeah," he said with a nod. "She said she was checking in on the property, wanted to make sure the transition was going okay." "Transition?" I echoed. He looked apologetic. "She made it sound like the house was still being sorted out, like maybe it wasn't officially yours yet." That hit me right in the gut. I knew my mom could be manipulative when she wanted something, but flat out lying to one of Grandpa's oldest friends? That was a new low. Then Donnelly added, "She asked if I'd seen anything strange, like maybe someone had tried to break in or mess with the place." That gave me pause. My gut was already uneasy, but now the alarm bells were ringing. "I didn't think much of it at the time," he said, "but figured I should tell you." I thanked him and closed the door, heart pounding in my chest. That night, I set up security cameras, front yard, backyard, the alley, even one above the garage, just in case. Sure enough, 3 nights later, I got a notification just after midnight, motion detected by the side gate. I pulled up the footage. There he was, Brent, hoodie on, flashlight from his phone flickering as he poked around the gate, trying to jimmy it open or find a weak spot. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I wanted to be sure. I saved the video and watched as he gave up after a minute, muttered something. Yes, I could hear it, and walked back to his car, parked a block away, of course. The next morning, I sent the clip in a group chat. No explanation, no caption, just a link. Nobody replied. Not even Lila, and usually, she thrives on this kind of drama. That afternoon, There was another knock at the door. This time, it was my dad. He didn't bother with greetings, just stood there on the porch, arms folded like a disappointed principal. "Connor, this is getting out of hand." I raised an eyebrow. "This? You mean Brent trying to sneak into my house in the middle of the night?" He didn't even blink. "He was just trying to talk to you. You've shut everyone out." I laughed, couldn't help it. "Oh yeah? So midnight break-ins are your new idea of a family conversation?" Dad sighed, already tired of the act. "Look, this house, it means a lot to all of us. Your grandfather." He wasn't exactly thinking clearly at the end. He was sick, confused. And there it was, the new playbook. Guilt hadn't worked, sweet talk hadn't worked, so now they were rewriting history. "Don't do that," I said quietly. "Don't twist things just because you didn't get what you wanted. Don't insult him like that." His expression darkened. "You're making a mistake. Connor, you're tearing this family apart." I shook my head. "No. That happened the second you all tried to talk me out of something Grandpa very clearly chose me for." And I closed the door. But I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights off and watched the camera feeds, paranoid that someone else might show up. My mind ran wild with what-ifs. What if they tried again? What if someone forged something? What if there was a legal loophole they could exploit? Then, just when things seemed like they might be settling down again, I got a letter. Plain white envelope, no return address. And somehow, that was the most ominous thing of all. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper, typed, sterile, cold. "Dear Connor, we, as a family, have decided to formally contest the validity of your grandfather's will. We believe he was not of sound mind, and that the document in question does not reflect his true wishes. Consider this a notice of intent, unless an agreement can be reached outside of court. We will pursue legal action." My hands started shaking before I even reached the second paragraph. They were really doing it, suing me, their own blood, willing to march into court and twist Grandpa's legacy into something pathetic, claiming he was confused, manipulated, maybe even accusing me of tricking him in his final months. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about the house anymore. It was war, and I wasn't about to stay in defense mode. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the spot on the wall where Grandpa used to hang that black and white photo of him and Grandma. The one from their first trip to the coast. I could almost hear his laugh in the back of my mind, low and dry, the way it sounded when someone in the family got a little too self-important. He always used to say, "There's a reason not everyone gets a spare key. Money's funny, brings out the truth in people." He wasn't wrong. The anger didn't come the way I expected. No yelling, no pacing, no smashed coffee mugs. Just this, cold, like betrayal wrapped in legalese. They weren't just mad. They were willing to scorch everything down if it meant getting their share. And they thought I'd cave. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The next morning, I booked an appointment with Mr. Calloway, Grandpa's attorney and longtime friend. He was one of those men who seemed to have been born in a three-piece suit, late 70s, gray eyes that missed nothing, voice like gravel and old bourbon. His office still smelled like leather-bound books and burned coffee, the kind of place where serious things happen quietly. I slid the letter across the desk. He picked it up, read through it with a calm, deliberate focus. After a long pause, he set it down and said, "They're bluffing. Partially, this kind of letter. It's a pressure tactic designed to make you settle before it gets messy." He leaned back in his chair. "They're arguing he wasn't mentally sound." I nodded, quietly bracing myself. Calloway gave me a small, knowing smile. "Your grandfather thought they might pull this. That's why he spent the last 6 months recording video testimony. Over 20 hours of it." I blinked. "Wait, what?" "He wanted insurance, not just for you, but for his own peace of mind. He talks about why he left the house to you specifically, what it meant to him. And this part was very deliberate. Why he didn't trust the others to hold on to it. He names them?" I asked, stunned. "All of them," Calloway said, "by name, one by one. It's compelling." He was crystal clear. "If they file, we submit the tapes." For the first time in weeks, I felt something let go inside my chest, like I'd been holding my breath and didn't realize it. Grandpa had seen the storm coming, and he'd fortified the walls. But I also knew the truth. Lila and Brent didn't quit just because the law wasn't on their side. They'd pivot, get nastier. And they did. A week after the letter, the whisper campaign began. It started subtly, strangers giving me weird looks in the grocery store, like they'd already heard some version of my story, edited by someone else's bitterness. Then I saw it. Lila's Facebook post. "It's heartbreaking when people manipulate the elderly for personal gain. Watching a family fall apart because of greed." It's just sad. No names, but it didn't have to. Everyone who mattered knew exactly who she meant. I didn't respond. I just took screenshots, every post, every comment. Then Brent uploaded a photo of Grandpa's house, my house, with the caption, "Shame this place is going to waste." I saved that too. Then came the drop-ins. A cousin I barely remembered wanted to catch up. A random neighbor I'd never had more than a wave with knocked on the door to see how I was doing. One of Lila's old high school friends DM'd me. "Just so you know, your sister's really hurting." I smiled, nodded, played polite. But behind the eyes, I was documenting everything. Then one night, it escalated. It was just past 11 p.m. I'd finished brushing my teeth when I heard it, a wet splatter against the side of the house. Not loud, but loud enough. I checked the cameras. Eggs, 4 of them, all aimed low on the west side, just beneath Grandpa's old window. The figure was fast, hoodie pulled tight, face hidden, but the posture, the stride, the way he vaulted the side gate without hesitation, it was Brent. I bet everything on it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Grandpa's recliner, in the dark, listening to the old walls breathe around me. Every creak felt louder, every silence heavier. I had options. Legal action. Restraining orders. Public exposure. I had evidence. I had Calloway. I had Grandpa's voice, on video, calling them out before they ever had the chance to lie. And I was done waiting. "Connor," she said, her voice low and steady, the way someone speaks when they already know they're about to complicate your life. I saw the Facebook posts. I heard about the letter. Of course she had. Nothing in this family stayed quiet for long. "I'm sorry they put you through that," she added. "Thanks," I said, unsure what else to offer. "That's not why I'm calling." Something in her tone changed, sharpened. "There's something you need to know, something your grandfather told me a few months before he passed." My stomach tightened. "Okay. He didn't just leave you the house for sentimental reasons. He left you the house because of what's in it." I froze. "What do you mean?" She exhaled, one of those long, reluctant exhales, like she'd been holding this secret too long and wasn't sure how much to give. "Have you ever opened the floor panel in the study? The one under the rug by the window?" I blinked. "No, I didn't even know there was a panel there." "Well, you should look. He kept something there. Something important. He wouldn't tell me exactly what. Just said it was the kind of thing that needed to be found by the right person, that if anything ever happened and the family turned ugly, you'd know when it was time." I sat back slowly, eyes flicking toward the hallway, toward the study. "What kind of important?" I asked. There was a pause. "Let's just say your grandfather lived more than one kind of life, and not everyone knew him as well as they thought they did." Then she hung up. I sat there for a full minute, phone still in hand, heart thudding like a drumbeat underwater. The house was quiet, too quiet. I stood. Walked down the hallway, opened the study door. The rug she mentioned was still there, faded blue and gray, the one Grandpa always called, the one Grandma hated, but I kept anyway. I pushed it aside. And there it was, a small square outline in the hardwood, just subtle enough to miss unless you were looking. I pried it open. Inside, a metal box, old, dented, locked, but not dusty. Something had been added recently. And whatever was inside, it was going to change everything. Her voice was calm, but clipped. "I heard what's happening," she said. "Lila called me, told me her side of it, said you were trying to steal the house." I didn't respond. I just waited. "I knew she was lying," Marlene continued, "because your grandfather called me the day he finalized the will. Said he was doing something that would cause a ruckus and that I should stay far away from the fallout. But he also asked me to keep a few things safe, things he didn't want anyone else getting their hands on." My pulse quickened. "What things?" "He gave me a small metal lockbox the last time I visited," she said. "Told me to mail it to you after his funeral if things started getting ugly." She paused. Guess what I just dug out of my closet? Within a week, the box was in my hands. Inside were 5 items. A notarized letter from Grandpa reaffirming the legitimacy of the will. An old cassette tape labeled, "Let them hear this if they try anything." Copies of texts and photos showing Brent in contact with shady investor friends, people looking to buy Grandpa's land before he'd even passed. A dated and signed list of maintenance tasks Grandpa had me do over the past 2 years. Every time I visited, he'd asked me to fix, paint, or measure something. A sealed envelope labeled, "To be delivered to Connor's attorney if the family sues." This man, at 90, had still been 5 moves ahead. I called Mr. Calloway immediately. We went through everything in the box. When we finished, he gave me a sly grin. "They picked the wrong chessboard," he said. So I didn't wait. I went on the offensive. Calloway drafted a cease and desist letter for the harassment. We made it clear, if they moved forward with any legal action, not only would we countersue for emotional distress and defamation, we would also submit the entire package to the court, including the cassette tape and the investor messages. What was on the tape, you ask? A conversation Grandpa had secretly recorded during one of Brent's visits. Brent had casually suggested selling the house after Grandpa passed. You know, he'd said, we could all use a chunk of that money. I bet Connor won't mind splitting it. Grandpa had chuckled. I'm still alive, boy, and don't count on Connor giving up that house. He's got more backbone than you think. They thought they were playing checkers. Grandpa had set the board for chess. When they got the letter, everything stopped. No lawsuit. No more visits. Not even a whisper on social media. It was like someone had flipped a switch. Lila deactivated her Facebook. Brent moved out of state a month later, probably to avoid the embarrassment. As for my parents, they never apologized directly, but months later, my mother sent a card, just 2 words. I'm sorry. I didn't write back. Because here's the truth. Boundaries matter, and love doesn't mean tolerating abuse wrapped in the ribbon of family loyalty. I kept the house, every inch of it. Renovated it, slowly. Turned Grandpa's study into my work-from-home office. Planted his favorite tomatoes in the backyard. Even though I have no idea what I'm doing, and they look pretty sad most of the time. But it's home. My home. And not because of the deed. Not because of the will. But because someone I loved and respected believed in me enough to protect me. Even after he was gone. Grandpa didn't just leave me a house. He left me peace. And I won't let anyone take that away.